The Vikings were an amazing and interesting civilization that started and ended around 789 to 1066 Common Era. This period of time is known as the Viking Age of Scandinavian history. To my surprise, because of the name, they were originated in Scandinavia, which is modern-day Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. The Vikings are known in history as the red-haired, bloodthirsty killers with big helmets, or at least that's the stereotype. In media, they're portrayed to have little to no humanity and no concern for death. And contrary to popular belief, the Vikings were not just groups of merciless killers. They were smart innovators, tactical invaders, and they should be widely known for the development of trade routes that they established, which made them amazing and revolutionary. The boats they used were these large, beautiful wooden boats, and they could make it in as little time as a week depending on the amount of people they had. Large groups would get together to build boats that could function with the best performance for whatever endeavor they were going to go on. The most standard Viking ships could carry about 15 to 60 people, which really was a lot for the time. And they were almost made entirely out of wood. They were super thin and light, and by far the most practical and useful factor of the Viking ships was how light and thin that they were. Vikings could either row boats down rivers, pull them, or cross large and deep bodies of water. They were super versatile. They could even make it upshore. They allowed the Vikings to invade many parts of Europe through river passages, which was very inconvenient for Europe. While they were known for invading and killing, they weren't only how they were depicted and talked about. They didn't just run into a place without any strategy and cut off people's heads. They didn't have horns on their helmets, and they weren't merciless. They weren't killing for fun. They were killing for wealth. They had strategies to combat, and the most well-known was going in large groups to monasteries, since they weren't very guarded and the people in them weren't very good fighters. Another strategy they used is to go into towns as a scare tactic. People would barter for their lives and offer valuables because they were terrified. This practice demonstrates that they were not only about killing, they just really wanted wealth. This strategy worked well for the Vikings because it intimidated lots of people, leaving every town scared for a return. A prime example of this is the siege of Paris in 845. A Viking leader named Ragnar Lodbrok led over 100 Viking ships and went up the Seine River and invaded Paris. After they had taken over and demonstrated strength, they were paid to leave. Granted, they returned later, but they went away that time. The Vikings wanted to gain more wealth and still decided raiding was not enough. So they thought about what they could do, and the best thing at the time was developing trade. So they developed trade routes and linked them to towns in Greenland, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands. Using their ships as a travel method, they could cross oceans and rivers. These trade routes created a huge trade system, which ultimately led to the Vikings gaining even more wealth.